Hey there, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Prime HCSS, and today I want to take a look into a deck that I'm kind of excited to try in the Shrouded Fable format. The deck is Greninja EX. Now, Greninja EX, when it was revealed, people thought it was going to be very, very, very strong. And it has the potential to be. Unfortunately, it doesn't consistently have a way to deal with Manaphy. And on top of that, Gardevoir has been probably the most dominating deck in the current format, which keeps Greninja just out of hair's reach of being considered viable. For that reason alone, it's too easy for Gardevoir to one-shot every Greninja you put in its way. That combined with not being able to deal with Manaphy has kind of hindered, not kind of, it's very much hindered Greninja. But with Shrouded Fable, we get some new tools that not only I think make not Gardevoir down a peg, but also give Greninja a fighting chance in that matchup, which in turn I think makes it just more viable overall. And so we're gonna start with the Pokemon. We got 4 Froakie. Nothing too special here. Nothing noteworthy. The attack for 1 water, 30 damage. Flip a coin. If tails, it does nothing. This could be kind of significant. One, in the Gardevoir matchup, if you flip heads, you can finish off something that they've stacked a bunch of damage on. Or two, if Charizard is still playing one of the 60 HP Charmander, there's a niche scenario where you could donk one if you hit heads. But that's about it. Nothing really else to say here. Your Frogadier, though, has the attack Numbing Water, 1 water for 20 damage. Flip a coin. If heads, the active is paralyzed. This could buy you a turn. There is a lot of switching options in the format, so it won't be too hard for him to get out of the paralysis, but just having the option is nice. It's not, just be aware that it's a thing, right? Your main attacker is Greninja EX. Greninja EX, 310 HP for stage 2 is kind of low. But it's only got 1 retreat cost. It'd be really nice if it was free retreat cost. Greninja's a pretty fast Pokemon, but 1 retreat cost is fine. The weakness to Psychic does hurt a lot. Not just because of Gardevoir, but also Mew EX. If you're playing against something that can reliably attack with Mew through energy switches, a Mew can one-shot you by copying your Shinobi Blade. But your first attack, Shinobi Blade, 1 water, 170 damage, and you search your deck for any card. This is a phenomenal second effect. Granted, the format is full of hand disruption cards like Iono, Unfair Stamp, and Roxanne. But there are turns where they need to play other supporters like Arven or Boss, or maybe even Irida, where they can't really afford to Iono. And so just being able to search 1 card to set up your next turn, phenomenal effect. The second attack, Mirage Barrage, for 1 water and 2 colorless, discard 2 energy from the Pokemon, from Greninja, and hit any 2 Pokemon on their side of the field for 120 damage. So, like I said, right now it's been difficult for this deck to reliably deal with Manaphy, so Mirage Barrage hasn't been a very effective or very strong option, and usually the deck kind of focuses on using Shinobi Blade. But now that we have the Dusknoir line, we do have a way to deal with Manaphy reliably. If you can rare candy into a Dusknoir and knock out their Manaphy and then Shinobi Blade, you can kind of just cripple their board and cripple their setup. Other options you have is if you get 2 Duskull benched, you can evolve 1 into Dusclops, pop it, and then play Night Stretcher to bring your Dusclops back and use the second Duskull to kill Manaphy. So that's just something this deck can do. It's one of those combos that if you pull it off, you can most likely win the game from there. So that's why I think this deck is going to see a rise in popularity going into this next format, because it is a deck now that people want to play. now it has options to be competitively viable. So then your engine, your main engine is just Pidgeot. The Pidgeot engine for these stage 2 decks has been tried and true. Quick search is just a phenomenal ability. Being able to search your deck for any card every turn. Compare that with Shinobi Blade. You're basically searching your deck for 2 cards every single turn. That's Arceus V-Star Starbirth, but every single turn. And that is phenomenal. The Pidgey, you used to want to play the Call for Family Pidgey, but that only had 50 HP, and now that Dusclops is going to be very, very, very popular, you can't afford to play a 50 HP Pokemon. And so that's why we're playing the 60 HP Pidgeys. Before, it didn't really matter because Dragapult was going to knock out both of them with Phantom Dive anyways, but now it's just, you have to be able to survive a Dusclops. Next, we got Rotom V. Rotom is your best turn 1 option. Just if you can Nest Ball or Ultra Ball for it and end your turn by drawing 3. You can't really do anything else on your first turn anyway, so drawing 3 is just helps you set up for your following turn. The next new addition we have is Fezandipity EX. Fezandipity has been a phenomenal addition to almost every deck in the Shrouded Fable format. Its ability reads that if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, then you can just draw 3 cards. And this kind of gives you protection against Iono and Unfair Stamp. Just great to have on the bench. They take a knockout, you draw 3 cards, and then now you have more options going into your next turn to keep the game going, because sometimes just an Iono knockout just ends the game for you. So that's why we have a Fezandipity in here. And then Manaphy. You are a setup deck full of stage 2s, full of small basics. You have to be able to protect yourself against Radiant Greninja. That's why we have Manaphy in here. Manaphy also does protect you against Screamtail, which Screamtail can end the game by knocking out a Rotom or the Fezandipity. So that's why we have Manaphy in here. Next, for our supporters, Arven. Arven is phenomenal for getting, in the early turns, getting your basics out, finding your rare candies. I would honestly argue is going to 4 because not having Arven in the early game can almost be crippling. We don't play Lumineon, so we don't have a consistent way to find it. But, like I said, this engine, this Pidgeot, Arven, Rotom, and then 4 Sealstone, has proven itself time and time again to just be the most consistent way to play decks like this. We got 3 Iono. Iono is just, it's a hand refresh in the early game, and it's also you chain these later as the game goes on to keep your opponent's hand in check. Great for comebacks. And yeah, not much else to say here. Wouldn't go less than 3 though. 3 is like, it's fine. We got 1 Boss's Orders. This deck, I don't think you're going to find yourself bossing very often, especially since you're going to be using the Cursed Bomb and the abilities that they kind of just put you behind on, they're going to put you behind on prizes. So your main form of Gust in this deck is going to be Counter Catcher. So that's why we only have 1 boss. And then 1 Roxanne. Roxanne, it lets you, the ability of Dusknoir and Dusclops help you get to the range of using Roxanne faster. It's great draw, great disruption. So we just got 1 of those in here. On to the items. For Buddy Poffin. This card is the best card in these decks. It finds pretty much almost all of your basics. I would never play less than 4. Not much else to say here. 3 Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball, it's another consistency card. Helps you find any of your pieces to get set up. Not like, my problem with Ultra Ball is just there's a lot of things you don't really want to discard, but there are matchups where you don't need Manaphy. There are times where you don't need your second Pidgeot because you can only use 1 quick search per turn. So Ultra Ball, you do have options to discard. Then 3 Nest Ball, just find you more of your basics, but it also finds you Rotom and Fezandipity. And then 4 Rare Candy, you're playing 3 stage 2s in this deck. You're gonna rare candy in your Greninjas. You have to rare candy in your Pidgeots, and there are gonna be times where you want to rare candy into Dusknoir. You just skip the Dusclops completely. You want the 13 damage from Cursed Bomb that turn. So I couldn't imagine playing any less than 4. Like mentioned earlier, Counter Catcher. It's going to be your main form of Gust. You play a lot of the game behind because of Cursed Bomb. So this is your main form of Gust. You find it with Arven. Next, Earthen Vessel. Earthen Vessel is just a consistent, searchable way to find your energy so that you can attack. The reason decks like Charizard don't play this card is because Charizard's ability searches the deck from the energy. But other decks like Gardevoir and like Dragapult do play this card because they need to be able to find the energy. You can find it with Arven, just a phenomenal card. Next, we have Night Stretcher. This is a new card coming out. It's another form of recovery. It reads that you can either put 1 Pokemon from your discard pile into your hand or 1 energy into your hand. And this combos decently well with Dusknoir and Duskull. Because say you have a turn where you can get 2 Duskull benched, and then you evolve one of them into Dusclops, use the Curse Bomb, put 50 on something, and then you can Night Stretcher the Dusclops and evolve your second Duskull to then finish that knockout. Again, that prominently is for Manaphy. And then, so with all that, with all the damage being spread with the Dusknoir abilities as well as Mirage Barrage, you can set up Devolution plays. This is probably your strongest option to deal with Charizard, as Charizard, if you can't cripple their setup, then you need to be, it gets really hard to deal with it later, going into the later parts of the game. So if you can set up enough damage to take multiple knockouts with a Devolution play, that's why we have one of these in here. It is searchable with the Arven because it's a tool. And then Force Seal Stone, great for the early game, finding your rare candy into Pidgeot, which then Pidgeot finds the rest of your combo pieces. It's searchable with Arven for your Rotom. So that's why this whole package is in here. Our A-Spec of choice is going to be Unfair Stamp. I am personally a massive fan of this A-Spec in any of these Stage 2 Pidgeot decks. I think it's a phenomenal card that allows for insane comeback potential. I just think Unfair Stamp Counter Catcher can flat out win you games, and I don't feel the need to play anything else. Our Stadium of Choice is collapsed because once Rotom served its purpose, you kind of want it off the board. It's a liability. Later in the game, you could also collapse away Pheasantipity if that arises. You just want to get rid of those easy liability bench sitters. On to our energy. We got 2 Double Turbo. You're not really going to be using Barrage more than twice. So that's why we only have 2 in here. And Pidgeot can find them for the turns that you need them. And then 5 Water. Most of the time you're attacking with Shinobi Blade, and it only takes 1 water to attack. So, I might even see just going down to 4. Something else I have considered trying in this deck is Radiant Blastoise. Which Radiant Blastoise, it's kind of a forgotten Radiant. You can discard a water from your hand and ping something on the side of the field for 20. That's significant because that 20 from the Blastoise and a Dusclops' Cursed Bomb knocks out Manaphy. The only problem I have with it is you kind of just don't have bench because you're probably not going to use it past that point. So that's the only reason I don't have it in here, but it is something to toy around with. But other than that, that's the deck. I will be streaming and trying this deck out when the cards go live on TCG Live. But for now, Limitless has been a great tool to be able to put together lists, and you even have the option to playtest them if you've ever solitaired. It's a way to kind of solitaire. So that's the deck. Let me know what you guys think. I have a few more I plan to go over. I'm very excited for the Shrouded Fable format. I've gotten very the current format just isn't doing it for me. So I'm ready to try something new, try some new things. Um, but anyways, let me know what you guys think. My name's HGSS Prime, or Prime HGSS, and I'll see you guys later.